I'm Jake with HHA Sports, and today we're going to talk a little bit about our dovetail sights and how they're going to fit on the new Matthews V3X. So as you'll see, I have a Tetra Max Tournament Edition sight on this 33-inch V3X. All of our dovetail sights, the Tetra and the Tetra Max, will fit on the V3X. Also, in the next couple of weeks, you'll see us come out with a shorter dovetail version. It'll just be our short bar version, which will also fit on the V3X on both the 29 and 33-inch model. One question that we've gotten pretty frequently lately is the windage adjustments on your Tetra and Tetra Max bow sights on the new Matthews bow. And this year we came out with the infinite adjust plate, which you'll see on the front end of your sight. So when you
Cool. Yeah. All right, folks. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Bucks of America podcast. I am your host, Jeff Vance. Tonight's guest is a podcast host himself. He's a co-host to We Are His Servants podcast. Now, this is a very spiritual podcast, and there's on Spotify, YouTube, and iTunes, and they do a really good job of focusing on lesson, and their podcasts are in between 16 to 23 minutes, very direct, very specific. Now, I have from that podcast, Jon Duffield, and he is military. He's currently active. He's stationed in Georgia. So we get to find more about him and his role and his relationship and how he has been able to encompass our father with his military background and hunting. And so we get to talk about his experience and how he got into hunting, where he's at today. We're going to talk about hog hunting, pigs, and of course, we always got my popular, ever-growing popular hunting episode on Friday. So at this point in time, I'm going to let Jon take over, and he's going to be able to discuss everything what I just said in more depth. So here you go, Jon. Go ahead and take over. Hey, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you having us on. Or having me on. Like you said, I'm Jon Duffield. I live and hunt now in Fort Benning, Georgia. Just a little bit about myself. As a kid, I grew up no father or parents that wanted to hunt. So I was actually working at a pipe foundry in Pennsylvania, and one of the bosses was like, "Hey, man, do you hunt?" And I was like, "No, not at all." And he said, let's, me and my buddies, we have a turkey cabin up in the Pocono Mountains. Okay. And we'd love to have you up there. And so we went up and I fell in love with turkey hunting. And man, we would go up and it was just like your typical hunting cabin, right? So it was like everybody would show up on a Friday after work, and these guys had so much patience for me because at this time I'm probably like 16, 17. I had my own vehicle, so I had my license, and I didn't have a gun. I didn't have orange. I didn't have the vest or anything. And these guys were like just super cool dudes. The one old man, he had like a crab shell, and it had a slate in it, and that was like the call. It was passed down generation to generation. And the first time I wasn't a hunter, wasn't really an outdoorsman. I thought it would be pretty cool to harvest your own meat. And the first morning he wakes me up and we make some sandwiches, and we go out, and I heard that first bird, that thunder chicken out in the distance. And I was hooked like instantly. None of my own equipment. And it started from there. My love for the outdoors was right there, and it was crazy. It's crazy to see where I'm at today, because turkey hunting to me now is like, it's kind of
in Georgia, it's kind of hard, especially on base. There's not much turkey. I'm much more focused on deer. And yeah, it was just, again, like I think what people are missing today, and like getting guys, like everybody says, let's get some, get the youth in. But what you're actually missing is that brotherhood of like going to a cabin and getting in with like, your family members. I mean, these guys weren't blood family, but it was just such a good time to see everybody every week and through the turkey season. And those are the memories that that when I think of like hunting and outdoors, those are the memories that I get from like sitting by the fire and hanging out at this cabin. I just can't express that enough. Like, these guys changed my life in the outdoor realm like tenfold just by inviting me up. And so I think it's important that even, if you have a younger audience that wants to get into hunting, there's plenty of guys that can mentor. And if you can mentor, just remember, like, those first interactions with the outdoors are going to be super impactful. So just make it fun and make it enjoyable. And like, man, there's nothing better than hearing a turkey out in the distance over a lake. Yeah. So moving on, I ended up, hunting with those guys for a turkey. And then there were big time, traditional archery guys. So they took me out and got me a bow up at Cabela's there in Pennsylvania, and got into deer hunting, started hanging stands and learning from them. So that's kind of like how I got into hunting.
Very cool. Now, with your first turkey, did you use a shotgun or try a trad bow for your first harvest?
No, it was with a shotgun. It was with one of their shotguns, actually. Again, had nothing with me. They were just like, come up, enjoy, and have fun. So
yes,
that's what we did. It was super cool.
That is the best way to look at it, because it's if for someone that's new to the whole approach of it, because it can be very intimidating, and having that type of mentorship, but like you mentioned, the brotherhood, it really adds in that extra flavor, cementing in that camaraderie and such. I'm assuming you still talk to your friends up there in Pennsylvania still?
Yeah. When we go home on leave, they're such good people, and they're just like good old boys, and they were like my father's age. Because again, I was working at a pipe foundry after high school type thing. And these guys, one of them was my supervisor and the other one was his brother. And then a bunch of other guys would come up. So yeah, it was just like older guys got me into this, and just watching them do it right. And then taking care of the land and taking care of, because it's state game land, but like we didn't, you don't throw trash on the ground, like things that you think are just common sense. These dudes made sure I knew about it. And one of the funniest things, like one of my best memories or funniest memories was, so this guy tells me, go up.
All right. Where did you leave off at when everything just decided to crash?
I'm sorry. So I'm in a tree, not in a tree, but against a tree up in front of this guy. And he says, don't move. These turkeys can see you. So like they'll see you and you'll blow this whole jig. And we were hearing birds all morning. So I'm like, oh, it's on, So I'm sitting there and it's like an hour or two. And, I don't know any better. I just know don't move. And I start hearing snoring. So like I quick like turn around, look, and this dude's laid out behind the tree snoring. I heard him call for like 2-3 minutes. I figured, I guess he's sleeping. So I threw a rock at him. He wakes back up, and then like an hour later, I'm still trying to be the good diligent little hunter, not knowing anything, just staying very still, not moving. And I smell a ham sandwich. I smell like a sandwich getting out. I look back again, and I don't know why it's funny to me, but it was just like I was taking it so serious, and this guy was behind me eating sandwiches and sleeping. And now I look at it, and I'm sitting in a tree stand, and I do the same thing that every other hunter does, where we pack all these snacks in our little pouch, and by like 9 o'clock we have no snacks, and we're supposed to do like an all day hunt, So I just think it's fun.
That is true. I've been pretty good at not packing snacks. I like to hunt hungry, because now you're a alerts, your senses are a little bit heightened because now you're focused on like, if I shoot something, I'm going to be able to eat here after I get this done. And if you get until darkness and you didn't be able to connect on anything, it keeps that drive going. So then, how long did you move before you got into enlisted in the military?
So I was 17. So this is a time frame, like I was doing, because I was still in high school, working at the pipe foundry at night, hunting with those dudes. 17 years old, my parents sent me or signed off on it. I was like, this is 2005. So George W., they were already talking about the next push into Iraq, and I didn't have anything better to do. I was like, well, I don't want to work in a pipe foundry for the rest of my life, so let's go try it out. Signed up for the Army, went to the training, and then came back. And then every time I'd come home, I just put in some time in the stand. But yeah, like my early 20s were pretty much Iraq and around the world and hanging out, doing that kind of stuff. Doing that.
Well, we appreciate your service and stuff like that. I never was in the service. I have bad knees, but I work with veteran organizations and such to get them in touch with folks and such, and help them get past whatever they went through, and also put them in touch. The company I work for right now is you've probably heard of them, LHI. So with the health readiness program, so you're familiar with the whole process. So I work on the back end of all that nowadays. So I make sure all of the requests go through and such for readiness and such. So it's been a pleasure working for the company, being able to making sure that anything we do will have a direct effect with the soldiers to get ready to get shipped over. Now, is there any forecast of you guys joining Kazakhstan situation over there against Russia?
No, not for me. I'm on the retirement end of my time here. So hopefully here in a year or so, I'll be sitting on a farm somewhere in Pennsylvania, enjoying the rest of my life.
There you go.
Enjoying what I should have done in the 20s.
Well, at least now you got some more experience underneath your belt. So will you be are you going to be retiring like with the next 12 to 24 months then?
Yeah. I'm going to be I'm getting actually medically retired out. So it's time to take a knee, I guess, and go home. That's what they tell me anyway. So
I got you. That perfect sense.
Yeah, but I don't know. We don't really know too much about that. Obviously, those things, like the Russia thing, that's always happening. And not to go down this weird rabbit hole, but what we see in America and what the public sees is, what people want to be seen now. So that's been happening for so long. It's just a new focus. What they're looking at. I mean, the Ukrainians have been fighting Russia and like putting that foot down, and for 3 presidencies now, and even further back, right? But now it's like, what kind of battle do we want to win? So to the people who are listening, I wouldn't stress over it. I'm not no general or anything. I'm not the political maker, but it's been happening. We've had people there, show force. We've been to Europe showing force. Like it's going to take a big step by one of the countries to make something really pop off.
Yeah.
I think the best we could do for them is just show them that we have the support. We don't like what's happening over there. And I think that's pretty much what you're going to see. I think you're going to see a lot more delegation, but we need to get the Mr. Joe Public on our side. So we show the worst of it.
Yeah, you are correct. I mean, George Soros decides what they all want to do. I mean, I learned really interesting about something about his upbringing, because he got recruited by the SS when he was 11. Now, what they would do is they'd use them as Judas children. And what they do is they brainwash them into getting into going door to door in Auschwitz or through all these areas and knocking on the door and finding out where the Jews are, and then pretty much ratting them all out. Well, to pay him back between 11 and 16, he got pretty much around all the movers and shakers and all the big thing. And then as a repayment for him, he massed all this amounts of funding and all this amounts of money and such. Now it's like he's where he's at today because of that influence stuff. And it's very, very dark. I mean, how he's been able to curtail crimes against humanity is freaking ridiculous.
Yeah. And, like super proud of everything I've done and the men around me. And it's just sad. The more technology and the more things that open up and these podcasts that are out and the more opinions and the more, on site things. I know this is a hunting thing, but I think what's missing out of it is all this is building. People are building chaos on things that don't need to be built on. All these wars have been going on for, so many generations. And it's just so easy for me to go over to Europe and go and click a few times on my phone and being like, hey, this is what's going on over here. I can't believe we never heard of it, but it's always been happening. So I do, like you said, with Soros, I think there's bigger fish in the sea that we don't obviously see, and we don't see what's actually happening. And I think it's all coming to a head. And we'll talk about faith later on, but like my faith's so strong in my God and in Christianity that at some point this all has to end for every one of us. So I would just rather be on the other side of that fence and be on the good side of it.
That is 100% correct on that. And then to move into another evasive situation here is hogs. Like you were before we hit record, we were talking about hogs and what's going on down there. And why don't you give us some insight about that? Because I actually really haven't talked to anybody that deals with hogs and it is an issue. Because even on the military base, I'm sure you guys run into issues of them running up the area, running into like having Humvees and people, and then running into them with your own vehicles too.
Yeah. So So again, I'm in the beautiful state of Georgia where these piggies are. Just for your listeners up north who don't really have a good background, I'm getting my bachelor's right now in wildlife management, and my big paper for my big claim to fame right now in college is I did a paper on how the pigs got here, why are they here, and the difference between these multi-species of pigs. So basically, back in the day, Spaniards came to Florida. They thought they were somewhere else. They thought they were on an island. They released all these pigs, but it's not like they just dumped pigs off the boat and said, hey, they were moving. They were migrating this South Panhandle with these pigs. And every once in a while, they lose one or two pigs. Well, what people don't understand and why these pigs are so reckless is because every 4 to 6 months, they could have a new sounder of pigs. And you're looking at 8 to 10 piglets. So, it doesn't take much for them. They look at each other and they get pregnant type thing. So that's how we got pigs down here. And that's why they're like in little concentrated pockets, is because, kind of where these encampments were laid, these pigs stayed at. You get them in North Carolina because the Hatfield, I believe it's either Hatfield or Smithfield, one of the two, meat plant was off the Cape Fear River, and that actually flooded out. And regular pigs got out and became feral. So what we're dealing with is not like your wild boar like Timon and Pumbaa, but like they're just regular pigs that, they come out of their parents just like you would see. They come out of the mom as a piglet, just like you would see a piglet in a farm. But because of the nature of where they live and the habitat they live, they start getting, they get long fur, they get big tusks. But if you I know guys that trap and they take them and they put them in pens, and you take them and put them in pens, they will go back to being normal pigs, believe it or not. Like they're going to keep the long fur, but their tusks will start wearing down. And like you said, bacon, but there's not enough fat on these things because they're always moving. So down here they have so you could basically hunt them all year round. You could hunt them with thermals, which is cool. Like a buddy of mine owns a thermal hunting company, a hog hunting company, and we go out in the peanut fields and we take clients out, and we have during our blackouts that we run with, I think they're called spot hog. No, that's an archery thing.
Yeah.
Something hog thermal setup. And it basically records for the client and everything. It's a really cool setup, and there's just so many of them that you'll look out into a peanut or a cotton field and you just see little white dots. And at that point, it's just like you see on TV where they're like just mowing down pigs. You can mow that whole lot down, and a week later there's another 50 sitting in that field. It's almost impossible to just wave the magic wand and eradicate them. So we have that, and that's cool. That's something I was doing. And then on Fort Benning, for anybody who's never been, it's loaded with pigs because it's all high fence. So they don't get out much. And where they like to live, obviously in this hot weather, they'll go into a swamp and they'll burrow into these really cool swamp creek areas where guys aren't going to go to push pigs out. So they're kind of sheltered. But I got onto the wildlife management team here, and basically we set up traps, we set corn. It takes a few days. Just a quick breakdown would be like you put a gate up, and then you put another gate, and you put another gate, and you got to build it so they don't get crate shy or cage shy. Mm-hmm. And then we set post hole digger. We'll take a post hole digger and put the corn in, and then you go to the dollar store, and we buy Kool-Aid like in the jug, and you just run it out like 50 to 100 yards out. You just pour it out on the ground. They smell that, and it draws them to there. And then you work the outside of your pen for a little bit, and then once you start getting them on camera nightly, you start adding corn into those post hole diggers, and it's got a cool little trigger setup. But being a northern guy coming down here and thinking, man, these pigs are so cool, what I was missing was the agriculture detriment that these pigs do, because it's insane. Like when I take my northern buddies come down and see it, they're just like, what is this? Because you look and it literally looks like the earth is splitting, because they'll root up and they'll just pull up big patches of sod in their way, and it's just kind of like little waves of sod or leaves or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you're like, these are pigs. So they have an agriculture problem. And then what we were talking about before the podcast is what people don't, we have a very small turkey population on base, because these pigs will, as soon as these turkeys nest, because they'll nest at like the bottom of a tree or in bushes or whatever, as soon as these turkeys nest, they are eating the eggs. Like it could smell it. Now, so they're eating turkeys. That's a problem. Anybody that knows anything about deer fawn will drop. And if there's a hazard, mom and the rest of the little herd will push out, and the fawn will stay put. And it's like a drawing thing for the doe is trying to draw the predator or something. So North Carolina has those long pines. I was at Fort Bragg with the 82nd, and they have the long pines, and the long pine needles have to be burned. So we would find dead fawn that would stop, and the mom would leave, and they would curl up into a ball against the tree. Predator was the fire. Well, here, the pigs are the predator. So pigs and deer do not get along. So if you get on our trail cam, like I have 2 sounders on my trail cam. 2 weeks ago, I had a stud of a 10-point on there. But now I got these 2 sounders, which a sounder is just like a herd of pigs.
Okay, that was what I was going to ask you about it.
Yeah, now, sorry.
How big is a sounder while we're on that particular keyword?
So I got like 9 pigs. So normally a sounder will be the female and her piglets.
Okay.
It's very rare that you're going to have, I shouldn't say very rare. I'm not too far into this, but it's normally not multiple mamas with multiple piglets. Like, okay, if they have a mama and some piglets, it's normally, she's very protective of those piglets. So she doesn't have many, but they'll travel in packs or groups or sounders of 20, 30, depending how it works out. Yeah, I'm telling you, I wish I had some video of the thermal. I would send it so you could show your audience. But there's times where we go out and the whole field is just white with thermal, and you could just literally put the gun on and just start smacking away, and it does nothing to them. And then what's even crazier about these things is they are tough. They are so tough. If you're bow hunting them, it's actually awesome because down here I don't have to pay for a 3D target range. I just go out with my license
That's
and
so true.
I shoot any pig I want. So, but the thing with the shooting a pig is if you think about a deer in the front shoulder blade, when it opens up that little cavity right here. You have like a 4-inch triangle that you have to shoot your broadhead in, because otherwise you shoot anywhere else, good luck getting that broadhead through. I don't care what the weight of an arrow is. It's super hard. But it opens up and you can kind of see this like indentation of a triangle, and that's kind of what you're aiming for. That's with a bow. And then with gun, I've taken down plenty with a 22. So you shoot them right behind the ear. There's a little soft patch in their skull portion, and you just shoot them right there or right between the eyes, and it'll take them right down. So it's weird because sometimes you shoot them with 30-30, they don't do anything. They just keep running. And then other times you hit them with 22 in the back of the ear and it takes them down. So they're just they're super tough. They're really tough. They're tough to like kill and put down. But they're definitely, to my initial point, they're definitely a problem. It's not, I know a lot of people see the ag problem as like, we're losing so many crops, but like, think about it even further as you as a sportsman or you as an outdoorsman trying to be a good hunter, like you're losing through this thing that was never around. You're losing, fawns, you're losing ducks, you're losing, turkeys. And the other big thing is, and they're looking at it right now. I was just talking to the guy from the USDA who works on base, and they were talking about doing a research on the rattle of a rattlesnake. So a pig will eat a rattlesnake. They don't care.
Wow. Okay.
So
Did not know that.
So these rattlesnakes stopped rattling because it gives their position away. So I've walked up on, and I'm not a snake guy. I hate snakes. I've walked up on some big rattlers that don't do anything. They just look at you and they like back their head up, they rear their head, but they should be rattling and they're not rattling. So that's like been a concern on post, is like these pigs, are these pigs the reason that these snakes aren't rattling anymore? So it's just been a back and forth, and I'm sure some of your audience that lives down here has the same has witnessed the same stuff, or has some of the other things. It's not just local to Fort Benning, like it's all around the South for sure, these pigs and these problems that we're having with the pigs. So that's why a lot of people are, again, the ag thing, it's sad, but like the farmer will get paid back by the insurance company. The deer though, the deer that we're losing and the turkey that we're losing and all this other wildlife that we're losing because of these pigs is just, it's a mess. And if you shoot a deer at night at Fort Benning, not at night, but like right before daylight or dusk, and you don't get it, you don't have much time to get that. So like in the north, we have coyote problems where they'll start eating it from the butt back or butt front.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll have that with pigs. And my buddy actually smoked a nice 12 last year. We couldn't find it. It was laying in a swamp, and we got to it, and only the rib cage on up was good. And it was pigs. He went down there. We had to shoot a bunch of pigs around it. It was a mess. But a bunch of pigs just got after it.
Yeah, because I was wondering how a pig would approach a carcass like that. But apparently it's all omnivores or carnivores. They start from the rear end and work their way up. Because I've had predation from the buck you see behind me. I came across him.
Yeah.
I didn't have any coyotes eating on them, but they went right for the genitalia and ate everything up. But that's it. But I was able to salvage probably like 95% of the animal. But man, that is really ridiculous. But then again, the sounder though, like with 20 to 30 pigs, I'm surprised you still had something left.
Yeah, and it's like, and when I say sounder, and I don't want to get everybody starts looking it up. A sounder really is the pig in a litter. We just all call them like this. That's a sounder of pigs, because the boar is a total different. Like when I say to my buddies, hey, I saw a sounder today, they know I'm talking about a female pig and her piglets, maybe multiple female pigs, but they're not thinking boar.
Mm-hmm.
So just so everybody understands that.
Makes sense. I follow your logic on that. That's a good explanation behind that. So so with on the military base, so do you guys just do the two methods of hunting and trapping them to try to control?
Yeah, so the USDA guys, which is a pretty cool program. If you're into like, again, I'm trying to do my bachelor's in wildlife management, so I talk to them pretty often because they're a great resource. You think when I thought USDA, I thought like just farm agriculture stuff, but these dudes do a lot more predator stuff for the farm and agriculture. So they have sniper teams on base that run around with silenced 22s, and if there's like an issue with pigs in like the housing area, these guys go out at night with thermals on or nods on or whatever they're using, and they go out and they just take care of those, the pigs and the coyotes in those areas. So so those guys do that, and then the trapping thing's big, and then the just shooting them, just regular like guys that are out hunting. If we see one, we normally just kill them. Even if we're hunting for deer, we'll take them out.
That's what Wisconsin did last year. I think it was 2020 or 2019, because I swear 2020 was just a blur. But the DNR made an announcement: if you happen to see a pig, you pretty much shoot it on sight type scenario here in Wisconsin. I haven't really. It's been really 2021 was very quiet. I didn't hear anything from all the message boards I'm in, the groups I'm in. I didn't really hear anything about it. The reason why we don't have a big issue right up in these parts is that we don't have an open season for them. And on top of the two, like Missouri does a fantastic job of managing their pigs because they don't have a hunting season on them. They just contract people that go out and just trap them. That's it. That's all they do, because their goal is to eradicate 100%. If you have a hunting season on them, they're going to go all the way up to 80%. And then this way we still have something to hunt for the next year. But that's what's done a really good job of keeping them from going up into Iowa. We hear more about armadillos in Iowa than we do hear about pigs.
Oh yeah, that's another animal I'd never seen until I got to Georgia with these armadillos. They're pretty cool. But it is funny that you say the trapping portion instead of killing. And I always thought it was kind of weird. I'm not about eradicating them because I still like hunting them. I still like shooting them. I still like cooking them. I still like doing all that stuff. So I don't want to see them eradicated in certain ways. But like the guys that say like the whole Steve Ranella, like if you could wave a magic wand and get rid of one animal, what would it be? And the guys say pigs. Their method of to attack this is get everybody that's hunting them out of hunting them. And the only way you could take them is if you build these pens and kill them in the pens, because a good dude with a semi-automatic rifle with like a red dot scope, say I'd take my AR out and shoot them and I have like a 20 round mag in, I might get 5 out of a pretty decent sounder because they're fast. I mean, they don't run very far, but they're still fast. And as soon as that round goes off, they're out the door, just like any other animal. But if I set a good trap and I set everything up correctly and my triggers are working right, and again, if everything's done correctly, I could put 15 pigs into my little 15-foot long or 15-foot diameter not a corral. In the corral, I could hit a button on my phone and it drops the gate, and now I got 15, and 15 are going to die instead of the 5 that I would have shot. So yeah, it is a fight here for the wildlife management to get the guys to go on to trapping. But trapping it takes a lot of work and a lot of time, especially if you have an analog setup where you don't have the phone and you don't have a trigger set up on your phone. Then you have to go out and hang the stick and hang the trigger, and you have to every day you're baiting, every day you're checking your traps. I mean, it's a lot, and especially with the fuel prices right now, some of us had traps. I mean, I'd have to drive 30 minutes across post to check a trap, and it got to a point where I was like, I told the guy, hey, I can't unless you guys give me like a gas card. Like this isn't worth my time. I don't even like keeping these things. So, So I think trapping is kind of chaotic in the fact that like it takes a lot from the trapper has to be dedicated or be getting paid for it down here for it to really work.
Now I know in Texas, I think it was the 2020 season or the 2019 season, Steve Ranella, they had a guy, we worked with a guy that was trapping and such, and they give a price per pound, depending on like the how big it is, what sex it is, and it can go anywhere between 35 cents up to 50 cents a pound. But even still, then that's a small niche, and it's like that still takes a large investment to get that, because these corrals that they have to make are absolutely massive, and they're heavy. And to build the contraption to be able to lift it all up there and sit them into play, it's very, very expensive.
So at one point, and don't quote me on the prices, but I think it was like $25 a tail or $5 a tail that Georgia DNR was giving for each tail of the hog. So at that point, I guess it would make sense. But you like just to set up a trap, again, fuel and everything else. But then I'm going out and I'm getting a trash can full of corn from a farmer. So there's another $45, $50. And again, if you like eating the meat, I'm not a big fan of it. If you like eating the meat, then you're for $50, you're getting 200-300 pounds of meat. But the guys that Ranella, so the USDA guys, right? The guys that Ranella was dealing with down in Texas, they have like permits and stuff that they have to go to a certain butcher shop. The eyes have to be checked. The meat has to be checked for freshness, and they're actually live trapping. So they, like you saw, they transfer the pig from the trap to a trailer, and then it's taken out, I'm assuming closer to when they could deliver it to the butcher shop, because it has to be a certain freshness. And that's just something that we, on base couldn't do.
You have to have essentially the infrastructure beyond them. This is a program that takes years to cultivate and to get there. And on top of it too, it's like Texas is absolutely massive. So it's like, I myself am not familiar where these herds would be at and where they would have these setups at. So it's for Georgia, it's like, and it's not a flat country. So it's like, you really have to really begin the process now to be able to set up that infrastructure. And you have to find butchers throughout the area. The unique thing is too, it's like, if you're poor, you're going to eat anything you want. But you are right, though. I've heard that I have a friend of mine down in Florida that they would catch hogs, but if it was a male, they'd castrate him and send him back out. And then a few months later, then shoot him, because the testosterone sours the meat.
Yeah, I think it's the testosterone, and it's a swamp. It's what they live in. It's what they eat. I mean, they're eting dead carcasses. They're eating piglets. I've walked up on that. I mean, I've seen some crazy stuff going into the mouth of a pig. So the meat, for anybody who has never tried it, it's the smell of like pork and sauerkraut in a crock pot. That's basically every time I cook it, it's like that smell. And I guarantee you there's going to be some dudes hitting you up in your DM saying, "Oh, it doesn't taste that bad." I mean, yeah, to me, it does. I'm not a fan of it. It kind of tastes like ammonia, or it smells like ammonia, and it's hard to get past the nose. Yes, I have used the buttermilk trick. I've tried everything, because I mean, like I said, it's all year round. You can kill these things, and I'd rather be able to harvest what I'm going to eat and put on the table of my family's table than go to the store and pick it up. Now, where I do think the USDA and these DNRs are failing is there's so many homeless people, and there's so many people who can't afford meat and they can't afford food, that these pigs, if I knew I was doing it for a charity and I was going to drop it off at a pig or at a butcher and it was going to go to charity, I would do it all day long. But for me to just go out there and shoot them and just let them lay, because that's basically what we do anyway with them. To me, it's not worth it.
Yeah, it sounds like but then again, like you said, it's like processing that meat and dealing with that ammonia smell. See, I myself have been around pigs slaughtered, but they're from off a farm, and so watch the whole process. So now being out in the wild, I don't have that. So it's like it's something that it's on my bucket list to go do. Now, after hearing your story about it, I don't know how motivated I want to try to get after it when it comes down to like going to Texas or Georgia or going wherever they are. So it's like, man, it almost seems like, what do you really do? It's like, all I'm doing is just sending ammo down range and spending $200-300 for it. It's like, well, where can I go? That's it's public land to go after, because Texas and Iowa are 50 and 49 when it comes down to the least amount of public access you can use. So it's like, well, where can I go to where it's like, I'm going to send ammo down range. I want to be able to do it for free and have and just put my expenses someplace else.
Yeah. So Georgia, you could get what's cool about that is if somebody would like to come to Georgia, you could basically get a small game license, come on down, and you could shoot them, because there's no bag limit. There's nothing on them. They're just they're just a trash animal, basically. So as long as you hold a Georgia license, whether it be a visitor license or a state license or a resident license, you can go hunt them. So I know people that really like pig. So they go out and they get their small game license, which is pretty cheap, especially if you're, from out of state. You come down here and you shoot as many pigs as you want, and they're pretty much everywhere. The further south you go, as long as you're close to some water, you're going to find some pigs. And then they're easy to find, because when it gets hot out, you go to the swamp, and when it gets wet out, you go away from the swamp.
Which makes perfect sense. There's states up here when it comes to the coyotes are kind of like that too. It's like, you go to Minnesota, you as soon as you cross that border, you can start shooting them as soon as you get across there. Over in Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, you have to have a fur bearer's license or a small game license to go after coyotes. But it's like, it's unique about Minnesota. Like, they're the only ones like, hey, it doesn't matter, just come shoot them. Just shoot them as many as you can. And I think that's what kind of keeps them that do that. It keeps that our population, and I'm not quite sure what the whole thing is, because it's like not every area does, but as a firsthand story, that there was a guy where I used to live at in Minnesota, over by Rochester, Minnesota. There was a kid out there, I think he was 16, 17 years old. Last season, he shot like 180 coyotes. Yeah, nobody had that. The generation, like my generation of people that will be hunting them, that are now in family mode, where they have 1 to 3 kids and a wife and a job and health insurance. So it's like, in a mortgage. So it's like that time eventually evaporates. So it's like having that younger generation to be able to have that flexibility to get after. It's like, go for it, man.
Yeah. And that's like, back to my turkey story. Like, that's such an easy thing for you to, like, if you want to mentor somebody and you're kind of worried that they're not going to like it, go out and buy them bring out a 17 or a 22 and get them in a field. You could pretty much talk, as long as you're downwind from everything. Set up your call, call every once in a while. It's a great way to get, like, varmint, your squirrel, your predator stuff. Like, get people, like, I do it with my 7-year-old daughter. Like, I'm not going to take her out into the spot where this big guy is. I'm going to take her out to, a spot where we're probably going to see some squirrels. Maybe we'll see a pig or two. Just think like, what you think is cool as a hunter. You got to get somebody to that point of, they don't want to sit all day. They want to sit for a little bit. They want to see some action. So give it to them. Like, Predator is pretty good.
Yeah, I took my 9-year-old to Shields. They're right before Black Friday deal, so it's like maybe introducing her to crossbow, because I got her a bow young, and it really didn't stick. So it's like, I'm not going to force her on it. She does like to shoot. She likes wildlife. She likes hunting, but she doesn't like to hunt. And so it's like, well, maybe getting a crossbow could open that up, because now I get her out in an earlier season, like in September here in Wisconsin, and they're age limit on hunting is like, as soon as, like, they could be 0 years old. Nobody
gets you saying about that. Yeah.
Nobody gets a tag that young for their kids, because it's kind of like shady, because it's like, you get your newborn a buck tag. It's like, well, they know, it's like, that's just a red flag right there. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, that'd be a perfect opportunity. I have a ground blind, set her up in that, and we can set off and get her practicing at that 40 to 60 yard mark right there, and I can set her up on spots where I know where I'll have deer come walk within that 30 to 60 yard range, and it'd be perfect. But she admitted to me right then and there. It's like, Dad, I just don't have the patience. It's like, well, I can appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, and I guess you probably listen to Rinella pretty often, and I remember him saying, somebody wrote in and said, and I just had my daughter, and they said, what do you do if you want to get your daughter or your kid in? They were talking about how you treat the kid and how you do it. So my daughter has been going out to the woods with me since she was 4. And every time I have the same plan. Like, I know it's going to last about 20 minutes, but now we're at 30 minutes. You know, she's 7 years old. She'll sit for like 30 minutes, and she's a pretty girl. Like, she's like her mama. So she wants, you know, she wants to do Barbies and not hang out with dad, but she knows, like, I make it fun. So we get slushies, and then we go out to the woods. And I think that's important also for, you know, these new dads. Like, how am I going to get a daughter involved with hunting?
Mm-hmm.
And every time it's just something fun. We build little forts. I let her play by the creek, you know, and then when, you know, we get a few dry spells, and then we go out into a spot where I know I'm going to find a pig, and we shoot a pig. And then she thinks that's cool. You know what I mean? So just give them the opportunity to see animals. And then it's also important that not every time that we go out, she knows not every time we go out is going to produce, because then it gives her this false thing of like, every time we go out, I'm going to kill something. So, but I try to make it as fun as possible. Lots of yeses. And then when she's like done, she lets me know, hey, Dad, we got to go. I want to go back to the house and watch whatever, watch Netflix or something. Okay, let's go. And then, but it's nice. It's something, it's memories that you're going to make. And, you know, for your listeners out there, don't worry about her being a girl and not wanting to do it. Like, just get them out there and don't force them to stay out. I think that's like the biggest thing I heard Ranella talk about, was like, forcing them to stay out is going to mess it up.
Yeah, that is a key aspect of it. I completely agree. And when people think, like, when they ask, like, when should I get them introduced, just close your mind to technology. And it's like, when we were in the before World War I, it didn't matter what age if you were a single parent, if you were a parent, those kids came with you no matter what age where they were, you know. It's like, so it was all because of it. And now, so it's like, when you think about it, just close your eyes to it, and it's like, oh, I'll just take them out right now. Like, she was around her first carcass at 3 years old. I mean, that's when I shot him. So it's like getting him around, and it's like, but I was like, it was already gutted and stuff like that, and I hadn't removed the hide yet. But it's like, we're just showing her, and then getting them as soon as she had teeth. It's like we were feeding a rabbit, we were feeding pheasant, feeding whitetail. So this way, then she would already have this memory, and like, and I'm a good cook, so it's like it already helps out to be able to add that extra value to it. And so it's like, it's fun, because like for Christmas with my sister, we don't do ham, we don't do turkey, we do venison. And so we did like a hot beef sandwich, but we switched the beef out with venison, and she just demolished it. It's perfectly easy. Throw it in the crock pot. We did whatever we wanted. We made, what did we do? We made cookies, we made gingerbread houses, we had all kinds of fun stuff while I was cooking in the background. And it's like, if you do it right, we can virtually almost pull the gaminess out of it.
Right. And that's the other thing. Like, so my wife and I, since we've moved from, or been in North Carolina, we are, as many deer as I could put in my freezer is what I'm trying to do. I don't care. Like, I need to get my own out of the way. But once friends start saying, oh, dude, I shot so many, you got an extra tag, and I'll throw them a tag, give me half the deer. You know, like, I don't have that pride thing where, oh, well, it's not my deer, I'm not going to eat it. No, you bring it over, and we're going to eat it. Because again, if it's from the land or from the river, we want it in our freezer. I know where it's coming from. I know who killed it. I know how it was processed. And I'm not like a weird, like, you shouldn't go to the grocery store, but like, if you can do it, you spend all this money. Like, you know, my hay lawn was, I don't know, $2,200 when I first bought it.
Yeah.
Your average tag right now is $75 to $100. Like, that's so much money and time and invested, and being away from your family for so long. Why wouldn't you want to, you know, harvest as much as you can and show your family, like, hey, I've been gone this year, you know, for this little bit of time because it's deer season. Like, once deer season hits, my wife already knows. It's like, she won't see me, but like, deer season hits, but she knows that, you know, we're going to have venison at least 3 times a week. You know, it's just, I think and getting that into your family early and getting that into your kids early is super important.
Yeah, exactly. And my wife, she hunts, so which is even better. It's like,
nice.
So when it came down to like getting her all set up, because like before she met me, her previous boyfriend pawned her bow. So it's like, all right, we're gonna go pick out your first brand new bow, and then and for Christmas / her birthday, whatever you want, or however she chalked it up. I just got I got a new strings, and she's a Bears fan, so I got her matching spring. We got her Bear strings for her bow, so it's this way. It just kind of keeps that interest going, and it's all customized to her, so she absolutely loves it.
Right.
This bow back here is mine, but you know, I got a nice Lakewood case. It holds both of our bows, and we go to the HHA shoots, and it's just nice. And I keep on dropping hints to my daughter. It's like if you hunt, the ring gets a little bit bigger.
Yeah, exactly. And dude, it's just such a blessing that these two guys that I would have never ran into, like, met up and were like, hey, that dude looks like he probably would like to hunt, and then brought me into this world. And now, you know, what my dad, and dad's a great dude. I mean, it's not like that, but what my dad didn't do for me in the outdoor sense of the deal, I can do for my daughter. So I could start her off young, and then whether it pans out, it pans out. If not, then maybe it's something fun that she gets to do with dad every year. We go out and do like a pheasant hunt or, you know, a deer hunt. But like, this is hunting to me is so much more. And I think probably for most of your listeners, hunting to me is so much more than just, I'm going to go kill a deer. Like, there's so much that goes into it that you could like really build your family around too.
And it comes down to the spiritual aspect of it, because a lot of people tie their faith to the outdoors, and there's scripture based off of it. I'm not going to quote any scripture on it because I don't know any off the top of my head, but it is something we all tie into. It's our way of communicating with God, because for us, is like, for a lot of us hunters out there, a lot of times we spend our Sunday mornings out in the field, because it's like we work so much. We have to have that give and take, and it's our way of spending time with the Lord. And I know I've spent my time out there listening to him and listening to sermons and such. Like, my church does live streams, and I'm able to stream. Well, depending on where I'm hunting at, I'll be able to stream the sermons to just sit there and have an earbud in. I have my right ear's bad, so it's like I put my earbud in that one, and I have my fine tuning in my left ear, so that's why I can still pay that attention. But it's like it's our way of having that connection, but our mental health aspect to it too. Because a lot of men, it's like we're raised not to communicate our feelings, but it's like, it's amazing that when you bring God into your life and you make your life around him, you serve him, it's like the blessings are abundant. And it is strange, because it's like when you first begin your journey, it's like you don't quite understand everything, but as the doors open up and as every dawn comes, it's a blessing in disguise. Because it's like, even if you don't harvest anything that morning, being out there and listening to the surrounding, and like, this is God's symphony, this is God's portrait and landscape, you know, it's like, this is what his painting for you to appreciate.
No, for sure. And you know, we are all blessed, regardless of hunter, not a hunter. Like, everybody should feel blessed, all your listeners. But it does what, you know, what faith does for me, and the blessings that it's brought me, and how I could tie it into the outdoors is, you know, it takes you away from everything else. Like, some of us, I mean, we get on Instagram and scroll through. I mean, we've had conversations. I'm sitting in my saddle doing something, right? But once you take that all away, and like you said, the mental, I think, you know, the big thing is mental health, right? So what's to me, what's like Christianity and being religious, it's like understanding the Bible, trusting God that he will provide for me and my family, and then giving him the gratitude. So those three things are super simple. Like, I just have to trust in him, I have to accept him, and, you know, do the gospel and all that stuff. But simple, right? That's what we're looking for. It's simple. Like, it's not as simple. The Bible isn't simple. And I'm not saying that. I'm obviously not trying to be blasphemous or anything, but that's all simple. And once you could get your life into a more simpler, like, take that gear down, and then you get all that craziness away from you, like all these, your bills, your work, your, family arguments, all those things that just cloud your mind through the day. And you get in that tree and you're like, well, I'm here now. And now I could focus my attention on me and God. And I mean, there's so many guys on YouTube, successful hunters who are very religious dudes. Like Seek One is like one of my favorite shows. I mean, they're from Atlanta. They do urban hunting and, super like devote every episode they have to God and what God has done for them. And it just goes to show, like, am I going to go kill a stud because I believe in God? No, I have to put the work in. But he makes it more like when I do get that stud, or I do get to see a deer, or I do get to spend my time with my family out in the woods or doing these outdoors thing. I think it just means more to me now that I walk with Christ, for sure.
That is true. I want to hear more about hunting on a military base, because
Okay.
as we discussed earlier, I'm just miles away from Fort McCoy. I've never hunted it myself, and and I've heard stories that most people that do hunt it is just civilians, because they're either their schedule's too busy for them out there, or they're just the men that are stationed there, the women that are stationed there just don't have it, and they're just not part of who they are.
Not their
So
thing.
yeah, so tell me about how is it like for hunting whitetail on Fort Benning?
So hunting whitetail in Fort Benning, like we said before, so big change into state game land and hunting on a military base. In certain spots, you kind of have like that when big open training areas where it's like heavy wooded lots. You kind of still have that state game land feel to it, but you have to understand that these deer hear explosions all day, every day. They see people run back and forth. They see these big tanks that run back and forth all the time. It's very rare that you're going to get to a spot on post, because I'm a big time fan. I'm a big fan, and I'm sure most of us are a big fan of, like, here's the road. I want to go 5 miles in and try to I want to get into a spot where you have to walk 5 miles, but it's very hard where we're at because we have so many fire breaks because of, active fires and the pines being burned and everything else for training reasons. And so it's very hard to like get out of somebody else's way. Like, people will stack up, and ours is take like the map of America, and every state is a sector that you have to sign out. So we get on our phones, there's an app, and we sign out on a certain sector, which would be like this, just a training area. It might be, 20 acres, or it might be 120 acres, but it's a training area. They have it set up that, each training area can have a certain amount of hunters. And then there's archery only, there's muzzleloader only, there's shotgun only. Then there's the wildlife regulations, there's state regulations, there's federal regulations, and then there's what the military regulates. So you have to know your rules, but if you're scared about getting into like on a military base and hunting, I would say it's some of the best hunting for a newcomer, one, and two, they're so easy to pattern. We were talking before that, I shot my 9 this year based off of trainees going to the chow hall. Like, I knew this buck and these 3 or 4 doe were going to move every morning out of their every afternoon out of their bedding area once these guys stood in formation in front of their bedding. So I just waited, and 5 minutes into a sit, I shot a 9. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a blessing and a curse being on base, because there's so much extra stuff. We have to pay an extra fee for a permit, but it's almost like our own, like the guys that hunt it hard, it's our own little, private land, because you have to be either a visitor with somebody that's going to sponsor you who works or lives on base. You just can't just drive on base and start hunting, or you're active duty or some kind of veteran status that allows you to hunt there. So it's kind of like a club, like a hunting club. And like I said, we're loaded with deer. Like, there was some monster bucks, and this year there has been huge deer getting harvested, just watching the Facebook page and everything. And it's all because of COVID-19. So last year, if you didn't reside on the military base, or you weren't active duty, you couldn't even get a permit. So we're sitting on, man, I wish I knew. I think it's huge. Like, you just drop, whoever wants to look at it, like, look at the map of Fort Benning. It's huge. I can't tell you the acreage. But it's loaded with deer. And now you think about it, we work so much. Most of us work 12-hour days. So most of us don't get out Monday through Friday. Like, Saturday and Sunday is a big day for guys to hunt. So most of the crowd is out Saturday, Sunday. The Monday through Friday, these deer don't get pushed at all. And then if guys even get out, like there's rotations obviously to different countries. There's the amount of hunters last year drastically dropped for Fort Benning. So these deer were no pressure. They were making babies. They were growing antlers. And we're seeing the fruits of that this year. Like dudes are just smashing monsters left and right. But I say all that to say, I think the deer got used to low pressure, and then all of a sudden, like this thing happened, and they didn't know what to do with it, because the certain areas that I've been hunting for the past 3 years that I can guarantee, like if I was having a hard time putting meat in my freezer, I was going to these 3 or 4 spots. They weren't there this year. So this year has been a whole new learning experience. And this is my first year of using cell cams. I ended up buying 3 muddy cell cams, just trying that all out because I was scrambling at the end.
Yeah, I was
they
going to
were
ask
there.
you. I was going to ask you about that. If the military allows you to put cell cams on there.
Yep. Yeah. We could put cell cams. Like basically, like I was saying before, the cantonment. So your archery only areas, the cantonment's like the only thing they're kind of weird about. Like they don't want you to be, because it's around housing, and it could be around the school, it could be around a park, it's on the golf course. You don't want to be walking in at 3:00 in the afternoon while Jim is trying to tee up, and you got your bow and your full camp. Like they kind of want, like your guy that you had on last week, you kind of want to kind of be incognito about it, right? You want to get in there, and you don't want to ruffle any feathers, because that would ruin, just like he said, it's the same deal. That would ruin your opportunities for next year. If somebody complains, oh, well, the deer died in my yard, so you got to make a really good shot, pretty decent shot. You want to do that anyway, but you really want it to like not go 20, you know what I mean? That's about it. So with the cantonment shoots, we have to shoot, just like he said, we have to shoot a paper plate at 30 yards from a 15-foot elevation. You have to shoot it's like a 6-inch, one of those cake plates. So you shoot it with 3 broadheads. It has to be, 3 broadheads, can't be a field tip, with your bow system at 30 yards, 15 feet in the air. And once you have that, you get your permit for cantonment, and that kind of opens you up to like these bigger things where like a hanging hunt is where it's at. Like you'll see some guys in these back 40s that have like their ladder stands and their lock-ons. But for me, and I know like probably going to get crushed for this in the comments, but I started saddle hunting. And I know that's like, some dudes are like, man, you don't even tell people you saddle hunt down here. I don't know how it's like up there, but like the saddle hunting thing is not a thing up down here.
Really? I figured it'd be popular.
Yeah.
It's a growing, it's a growing popularity up here. I have several of my friends do it. I don't have the knee strength to be doing that stuff. So it's like, I just do a ground and pound. I have a ghost blend that I use, but it's like, hey, I've heard nothing but positive things about people doing it, but it's kind of strange because arborers have been using harnesses for decades, and all of a sudden now it becomes popular. It's just strange to me.
Jeff, all right. So like this tethered company came out, threw enough money at something, got enough people involved. But if you look at, another little hobby of mine is like heavy material sewing. So I sew like tactical equipment, backpacks, stuff like that. So I just looked at what I had in the shop, and I was like, well, that's too easy. I'll just build one. I wasn't about to spend $600 on, looking at it. It might be $150 worth of material, maybe. And I know the material they're running pretty much. I looked at one and I made one, right? I thoroughly enjoy it because I hate having things with me. I like being free and being able to, like, I want to be able to just drop 4 sticks on the ground and drop my saddle next to it, cover it up with some trees, and maybe just, like stalk in on something. I don't want to have this big tree stand with me and I'm running around. I mean, I've been running the Alpha Elite, I think it is, the Elite Climber from Lone Wolf. And so that's I mean, that's like 11 pounds and it's nothing on your back, but it wasn't comfortable. You get up there and you're basically on I'm a pretty big dude. I was basically on a 6-inch patch of like padding. So that wasn't much fun, but I between me and a few friends, I made a few saddles for some guys. And, again, we won't brag that we're saddle hunters because it's just not a thing down here. I don't know why everybody hates the saddle hunters, but yeah, I enjoy it. I think if you can get in on it, it's definitely, it's just the most mobile that I think you can get.
Yeah, next to like a very, because my ghost blind is only 12 pounds, but it's like the first day I set it up, it took me like 12 minutes. Then every time after that, I kind of knew my strategy of setting it up. Now I'm able to have it up and setting it with under 8 minutes. So it's like it's very convenient for me. So it's like just like anybody that's getting into a new technology, it's like your learning curve is going to just drastically once you get your third or fourth set in. Yeah,
for sure. And like, when obviously I made my own saddle, so that was it was a little sketchier because I'm climbing and I had a muddy harness because I wasn't sure where the weight was supposed to be straddled. Right. I've been like working at the pipe foundry and the steel work, and like being in a harness, I know where the weight's supposed to settle on.
Okay.
But and I had a muddy harness from climbing and using a climber, but like it's different because you're just using a small patch of it to lean back on and sit in this like a butt hammock. Basically, that's what I call it. It's like a butt hammock. It's not supposed to be tight on anything. So my first like few climbs was like, I just get about 5 feet, check it, make sure everything was tight, and climb another 5 and then check it again. So, but now it's down to, I'll zip a few in. Like I've never used climbing sticks like the muddy ones. So I have a muddy climbing stick set, and I never had the rope, like the quick tether where you just tether it up and then run a knot on it. But now it's maybe 5 minutes and I'm in the tree hanging. And like, I run my, I actually like using no lineman anymore. I just like running my actual tether cord all the way up the tree. So by the time I'm up there, once I'm up, if a deer starts moving in on me, because I like to bed hunt. I don't like to look for pathways. I'm not looking for funnels. I'm looking for bed and bedding and like tight to their bed. So there's been plenty of times this year that I've been climbing up and I've had that just my my lifeline around, and a deer has walked under me because I'm not set up. I'm not ready. So I said, screw that. I'm using my tether the whole way up now. So that was a big plus for me.
That's
awesome. I don't know if anybody else has had that.
I haven't. You're the only second guest I've had that's actually was comfortable using the harness. Now, how much longer is your season going for?
We have I don't know what today is, but it goes till the 31st.
Oh, okay. So because today's the 24th.
Yep. So I got 7 more days? 7 more days, baby.
Nice.
It's a long one, man. It's so long, and not to interrupt, but like, I think when I got down here, I'm like, wow, it goes from like end of August, early bow to like late bow. Cause I'm in 2 different counties where the base splits 2 different counties. So you get an early bow and then you get a late bow. You get an early bow in one, you get a late bow in the next. And you're just like, by December last year, this year hasn't been a good season for me, but last year by December, I was pooped, dude. I had like 8 deer in the freezer, no bucks, and I was just like, I don't know if I could do this. We were going out duck hunting every Saturday. We were out smashing ducks at 4 o'clock in the morning, so just took a lot out of you. Like it's a marathon for sure.
Yeah, it's very true. Well, for up here, so we start September, usually the second week or third weekend of September. Then it runs, depending on what county you're in, we'll run until the 31st. Now, I wanted to go hunting this past weekend, but I slept wrong. And my muscle group on my left side, it was all messed up. And so it's like I was working hard with, let's see here. I think I got some emu oil here. No, I moved it away. But what it is, it's a combination of several different oils with it, but it's deep penetrating, but it's not as toxic as Bengay. So I was rubbing all through here, but it's like when you draw back, that's a muscle group that I'm holding my bow with, and it's like, I don't want to compensate for something, and I hadn't shot in a while, so I was hoping to get everything cleared up, and so it didn't ever happen, and then mine and my season is next weekend, and I won't be able to get out because I'm going down to Illinois for our final Christmas. So there goes that opportunity for going out. But I did get one doe. So I was able to be successful. One thing, and I saw one of the biggest bucks of my life, and it's like he came up on my right hand side, and it's like I don't know how to shoot right handed, so it's like and. For me to be able to get in a shooting position, I had to do a complete 360 because where I thought he was coming out and where he came out were two different places. But you win and learn. But it's like watching him and watching the maturity of an old buck, and like he didn't give two shits. I was up there, like I yelled at him. I tried telling him, I'm trying to like as I'm turning and I'm trying to get him, but it's like he was parallel to me. It's like I am not going to shoot an arrow at his spine. And it's like, and he never turned for me broadside. But if I was set up right, 15-yard broadside shot, been just dropped. But at least he'll survive, and I'm going to redo my cameras in that area, so this way I can watch him coming out of his bedding. So, but it was nice to get a doe. I got some meat in the freezer.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. Like, can I get meat in the freezer? And then this year was my first year that I saw a super mature, like pretty much the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life.
Is that the one you sent
me?
Then,
and then I think I messed up on, I didn't put too much pressure in there. I knew what kind of pattern he was holding because of training. So I was actually watching, and here's another being on a military base, you're not watching for patterns of the deer. You're watching for patterns of people. So I knew every time there was a training thing in this land navigation, like testing area, I knew every time there was land nav testing, this dude would move over. So I was waiting for that. And then I could move over. Like I knew he was bedded up in the land nav area, which I guess you could have hunted, but I didn't know where to hunt. But every time they would have one, the next morning he was in that spot, man. He's just a giant. I've seen him twice in a tree. And both times he knew something was up. Like both times he wouldn't give me anything. And the one time he did give me something, I like turned around, and this back to like me trying to learn the saddle. I turned around and I tried to shoot on the right side of the tree, which is that's not the good side when you're saddle hunting. And I picked up my bow and went like that a little bit, and I knocked a limb. And as soon as I hit that limb, he looked up at me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And you can just tell he's been sitting he's a swamp donkey because he has real dark tines. Like he's just, oh my gosh, he's a great deer. And I'm praying that he makes it through the season. I got him on camera Friday. He came in about 6:04 in the morning, which is still too dark for us. Him and two doe walked through, but I haven't seen him since then. So,
man,
fingers crossed he makes it. I haven't seen people on my camera either, and so that's always a good thing too.
Well, the picture you showed me, that's some real thick brush there, and so it's like if you hitting a twig, it makes sense because it's very tight, and which makes sense for a mature buck like that to have that type of coverage and that type of protection.
Yeah, what's even crazier is I don't know if you ever heard of the birthday balloon buck.
No, I have not. No, I haven't.
All right, so it's based off of thermals. So when a birthday balloon, like what are they called? The like cellophane or whatever somebody's probably screaming at listening to this, like they know the answer, but it's the ones that say like happy birthday and you bring them home, and they're kind of like foil.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
They'll float to a certain point, right, when you let them go, but they'll hit air pockets in the sky that drop, like you get your lower thermal, your hot air thermals. Well, that's where bucks love to lay. So I went and scouted this area, and I saw two of them sitting in a pine tree. And I don't know if it was like an old head that told me this, or, I mean, you can look it up. It's a real thing. It's called the birthday balloon buck or something. But that's where like the air naturally thermals and like does like a spiral down into a ravine. And two pine trees or two balloons in a tree, like they fell in, and then I set up some cameras there. Sure as heck, man, right under that tree, he was laying, looking out across the field.
That is awesome.
Swear to God,
that's pretty cool.
It was, yeah. So every time I see those balloons, I always look for like some kind of rub or some kind of scrape, and I would find it very hard for you not to see it, because 9 out of 10 times I've seen a rub very near to that.
That is cool. I had my friend Zach New on my podcast, and we were talking about communication and rubs and stuff like that. And when you see old rubs, it's not the a buck marking his territory. He's trying to figure out where all the does are, where all the honeys are. And if it hasn't been touched up in a while, it's because the does aren't there. And it's like, now I understand why during that conversation, why they manufacture or produce a non-estrus urine, because it's like all you need to do is, like, if you're trying to keep him that way right there, you can just drop a little bit on that rub right there, and it's like he'll continue going that way and continue hitting that spot, because it's like, you drop estrus too soon, he's going to know something's up.
Yeah, and they're not dumb, right? Because that doe, and what, again, I'm not on the outdoor channel, so I'm not the professional hunter, but things I've learned, and we were talking about scent earlier, is, don't people give these deer like this big thing where their scent is like everything, and we got to cover. And I'm not a cover guy, so I don't care about it. Like the last time I shot a doe, I had a dryer sheet hanging out of the bottom of my pants because they got stuck in there and I never took it out.
Okay.
Right. So I think big thing that people miss out on, and could I get more chances at some deer? I don't know, but I know this works for me, is the wind, and then basing their movement, like you're talking about the doe urine. What people are missing is they just hang it in one spot, but what you're forgetting is a deer, people are so wrapped up in the smell thing, but they don't look past okay, well, if the deer knows where you just walked, because they could smell that, every step you take, there's like air that comes out of your pants. That's what they say. And it goes onto the ground and the bacteria spreads out, and they could tell where you went. But when a doe marks, a scrape or a rub, or, when they rub into it, all that pee that they let run down and hit their glands and everything, all that is traveling with them. So if you're going to drop, and we've had success like on camera doing this, if you're going to drop into a scrape that's already been made, walk another 10 feet and drop a little bit more, because that buck, okay, you got there, but all he smells is a human or something unnatural coming up to that scrape. Now he smells too much pee, because most guys will just bomb it, and then they walk to their stand and they set up a camera, but they forget the trail out of it. So set up the trail out of it, and you could kind of guide. And I've seen dudes do that to guide into a funnel, and I've seen guys use their like socks and stuff to build a human funnel and like tighten that deer's movement up. So big thing on scent, again, for me, I don't care what I smell like. I think it just makes you hunt a little bit harder and know the wind, and I bring a wind indicator with me, and I just hope that what I'm doing is working, and I just play the thermals real hard. But if you're going to use scent and you're going to use that estrus or the non-estrus, think about how they're moving. And that's why dudes use those drag lines too, right? But just my 2 cents.
That's a good point.
No pun intended.
Well, that is a really good spot to end on. That's really good advice right there to create that. Well, before you wrap up here, can you explain more about a human funnel? Because that's terminology that I haven't heard. I just kind of want to hear your definition played out a little bit more.
So, like a human funnel, right? Where we're on base, you can't drive per se, but you can wind bump. So if I know a friend is out in a tree stand and I'm running late, I'm going to wind bump in favor of him. So these old heads back in the day, and my grandfather was a hunter, and he always had like these hunting mags, and I'll never forget, there was like a sock hanging on a fence post, and like I was old enough to read, and I was looking at it. He was telling me, well, they put socks up pre-season, and it would push this human scent a certain way that it would force the deer around that fence post. Or you take like some of us will take like I'll take a t-shirt out with me, and if I know I want to hunt that spot later in the season, I'll just throw a t-shirt on there. And the funnel portion is like, if I have the area that I'm at, if I have a creek that I know he sits on all the time, and I don't want him to push up any further, but I know my thermal pattern is always coming down into that creek, I'll set up that t-shirt or whatever a little bit higher, or I'll do my walk up in there and I'll J hook in. Like you guys, you run like you don't understand, like a J hook, like to get to your stand. So it like pushes them in. It's the same deal, like, but just using something else as the funnel portion of it. So if it's, a barrier, is it a transitional line? Is it a creek? Is it a ridge line? But using your own scent to push that deer into that. But again, it has to be the right way to play the wind.
I gotcha.
I hope that makes sense.
It does. It does.
To me, it makes sense.
Yeah, I completely understand where you're going for that. And I'm sure some of my listeners will understand that as well, or they'll find it as a very something they want to try out, or at least maybe do some experimenting with it in their area based off of how the wind traditionally goes, and just kind of play with around in the early season to see what they do. Because I reach gun hunters and bow hunters, so it's gonna impact somebody at some point in time, or they're gonna do it to upset a neighbor.
Yeah, and this is not even like not unresearched, because like we see it all the time. Like you can, in this training areas, and I'm not saying we were in a training area or you're going to hunt a training area, but there's certain paths that trainees always take, right? And then 5 feet off that path is another path, and it's a game trail path. But you take when those two paths will very, very rarely meet up. But you could almost, again, it's something for guys that can hunt on a post or off of a hiking trail, in the state game land. Just look off that hiking trail and see what's there. I can't guarantee, but it normally is like a trail, a game trail, because they'll run that pattern that you keep running because they know you're there. So it's almost like a confidence cow in a way.
Very true. Well, Jon, thank you for coming on the podcast, man. We talked a lot of good topics here, and I'm hoping that this human funnel conversation will find some use for somebody down the road. So thank you, Jon, for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, man.
What are the best ways to find you and your podcast?
So basically, we are a Servants podcast. It's on everything but Twitter, I guess. Yeah, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. Just trying to get the word out of the good word of God, basically. And we do it in a more of a study. It's not a lecture, and I hope guys enjoy it. And if you're wondering about God, hit me up. We'll talk to you.
There you have it, folks. Well, thank you for tuning into another episode of the Bucks of America podcast. Thank you, Jon, for coming on, and I'll let everybody go. You're welcome, sir.
I'm Jake with HHA Sports, and today we're going to talk a little bit about our dovetail sights and how they're going to fit on the new Mathews V3X. So as you'll see, I have a Tetra Max Tournament Edition sight on this 33-inch V3X. All of our dovetail sights, the Tetra and the Tetra Max, will fit on the V3X. Also, in the next couple of weeks, you'll see us come out with a shorter dovetail version. It'll just be our short bar version, which will also fit on the V3X on both the 29 and 33-inch model. One question that we've gotten pretty frequently lately is the windage adjustments on your Tetra and Tetra Max bow sights on the new Mathews bow. And this year we came out with the infinite adjust plate, which you'll see on the front end of your sight. So when you put this infinite adjust plate on, you'll want to either flip it to the inside or the outside. And for the inline mounting sight options, such as the V3X, you're going to want to make sure that the infinite adjust plate is to the outside of your infinite adjust channel. This will allow for optimal windage adjustments. So you'll also be able to find the Infinite Adjust bracket on our website if you're already shooting a Tetra or Tetra Max Tournament Edition sight. Another way that you can get your HHA to fit V3X is by buying our conversion kit, which you can find on our website at hhasports.com. We'll be selling those at retail around $60. So basically the only thing you'll have to do is you'll have to take apart your sight at the third access point, and you can convert any Tetra or Tetra Max sight. So if you have a fixed frame, you can get that into a dovetail. So like mentioned before, any dovetail sight will fit a Tetra or a Tetra Max, as well as our short bar version. For more information, you can visit our website at www.hhasports.com.